Okay, imagine this. You need to change your address. Simple, right?
Not always.
Not in Kyrgyzstan before this project, apparently. Instead of, a few clicks online, like we might be used to here in Korea.
Yeah, a few clicks is definitely not how our sources describe it.
No, it meant physically traveling, maybe to multiple offices, filling out stacks of paper.
And heaven forbid you make a typo.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One tiny mistake, and you're basically starting all over. Going back to get original documents reissued just to fix it, it sounds incredibly frustrating.
Oh, it was more than frustrating. Our sources paint a picture of a massive bottleneck. This wasn't just an inconvenience, it was soaking up time for everyone.
Citizens and the officials.
Absolutely. Every single service, every bit of paperwork needed an in-person visit. It created this huge drag on the whole public administration system.
Right. So that's what we're digging into today. This deep dive is all about Kyrgyzstan's journey to fix that, moving into e-government, and specifically using a kind of Korean-style approach.
We've looked at quite a few sources detailing this major initiative. It was really aimed at transforming public administration there.
A fundamental shift, not just putting things online.
Exactly. The sources make it clear this wasn't just about, slapping some forms onto a website. It was a much deeper reform.
Okay, so our mission here is to unpack this specific project. We want to understand the complexities, and believe me, there were plenty.
Oh, yeah. Far from simple.
And see the real, tangible benefits it's bringing to people in Kyrgyzstan, moving beyond just basic e-government towards, well, true digital government.
And the main project we're focusing on, based on the sources, is officially called the Modernization and Capacity Development of the Advanced Administrative Information Sharing and Interoperability System in Kyrgyzstan.
That's quite a mouthful.
It is. But basically, it's their key e-government push running from 2020 to 2025. And KOICA, the Korea International Cooperation Agency's Kyrgyzstan office, was heavily involved, leading the effort.
So you take Kyrgyzstan's existing system, mostly analog, pretty cumbersome, and the goal is to digitalize it, reform it, using lessons learned from Korea's experience.
Right. It was like a three-pronged attack, really. Overhauling the admin system itself, building the actual electronic systems.
The tech backbone.
The tech backbone, yeah. And crucially, changing how public officials actually worked, improving their skills, their workflows, making it all efficient for the citizens. That was the ultimate aim.
And the sources really stress how complex this was. It wasn't just an IT job dropped onto the existing structure.
Not at all. Success meant changing habits, changing mindsets, getting officials comfortable with and actually using these new digital tools effectively. That's a huge cultural shift sometimes.
I can only imagine. You install the best tech, but if the people using it aren't trained, or if their whole way of working doesn't adapt, well, it's not going to work.
Exactly. It just sits there or gets used inefficiently.
What did the sources say about getting different government departments to actually work together on this? Coordination must have been tricky.
Oh, that was another major hurdle highlighted. The sources talk a lot about needing seamless, continuous communication between ministries, between agencies.
Getting everyone on the same page.
Yeah. Sharing data, agreeing on common processes, that was absolutely critical and not always easy.
And technically.
Yeah.
Beyond the people side, what were the big challenges there?
Well, just building the core infrastructure. That was a huge technical lift. They needed really high-performance servers.
So that would crash.
Right. Capable of handling potentially millions of people trying to access services at the same time without grinding to a halt. That needs serious expertise and, frankly, serious investment.
But it wasn't only the tech and the training, was it? I remember reading in the sources about some almost unbelievable logistical problems they ran into. Classic bureaucratic stuff.
Oh, absolutely. There's one really striking example. The project faced big delays partly because, get this, another ministry suddenly decided it wanted the building that had already been picked out for the project's data cloud center.
You're kidding. A turf war over a building holding up a national digital transformation project.
It sounds absurd, but it really highlights how these non-technical interagency issues can become massive roadblocks. It really grounds the complexity, doesn't it?
It really does. Wow. And then there was the data itself. Just getting the information out of the different ministries sounds like a nightmare.
It was a colossal task. Think about trying to pull together scattered information from, say, the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Labor and Social Development.
Different formats, different systems.
Exactly. Collected over years, probably stored in completely incompatible ways. So unifying all that, cleaning it, standardizing it, migrating it into one usable system, that took a long, long time and a lot of painstaking work.
And remember, all of this was happening while COVID-19 was hitting globally.
Right, adding another layer of difficulty to everything, communication, travel, resources.
Yet despite all these massive hurdles, building fights, data chaos, a pandemic, the sources convey this real sense of achievement because the results for ordinary people seem genuinely powerful.
Yeah, this is where you see the payoff. The sources detail some dramatic improvements for really common things like changing your address, getting a passport replaced, updating family registers, driver's licenses.
The everyday stuff.
The everyday stuff. Processing times cut by over 90%.
90%. That is just incredible. Think about going from needing maybe an hour, maybe multiple visits,
to a fraction of that time. And even for services that were technically online before, but were maybe really slow.
Yeah, the ones that make you give up halfway through.
Exactly. They actually went in and did server tuning, fixed those performance issues. They got the processing time for those electronic applications down to like 1/10 of what it used to be.
So moving from just available online to actually usable and efficient online, that's a key difference.
It really is. But the project isn't stopping at just making routine admin easier. The sources point to a really critical future application, too.
Right, the welfare portal.
Yes, an upcoming online application portal specifically designed for welfare and support programs.
What kind of programs?
Things like monthly livelihood assistance, social allowances, aimed particularly at vulnerable groups like low-income families with children.
And the sources mention this idea of tackling welfare blind spots. What does that mean exactly?
Well, the sources explain it like this. Even when support programs exist on paper, actually accessing them can be incredibly hard for the people who need them most.
Because the old analog process was too difficult.
Precisely. Cumbersome applications, maybe needing to travel long distances, complex paperwork. It just wasn't accessible for people already in difficult situations. So this digital portal aims to remove those barriers.
Making sure that help actually reaches the people it's intended for. Bridging that gap.
Exactly, reaching populations that might have been sort of unseen by the system before because of those access issues.
That really drives home how this kind of digital work can be about social inclusion, not just making things faster for everyone else.
Definitely. And they also did practical things, like the sources mentioned creating promotional videos in local languages.
To help people understand how to actually use the new online services.
Right. You need to tell people it exists and how it works.
So, looking at why this seemingly worked, despite the challenges, what did the officials involved point to? What were the success factors, according to the sources?
Constant communication was huge. Talking with the local community, with the government officials on the ground, that was mentioned again and again as crucial.
And interestingly, they also gave credit to longer-term support from Korea and Kauai, describing it as sowing the seeds.
Yeah, that came up. It seems like positive experiences from maybe smaller previous projects built up trust.
A foundation of goodwill.
Exactly. Which was essential for tackling something this ambitious. That prior relationship clearly mattered.
What else?
The sources also really highlight the unity between the KOICA team and the Kyrgyzstan government officials, a sense of shared purpose.
And local involvement.
Critically important. They made a deliberate effort, the sources say, to involve local government officials right from the design stage, not just handing over tech.
Even if it meant more work up front.
Yes. Even if it meant project staff working much longer hours, needing interpreters constantly present to make sure everything was meticulously conveyed and understood by local staff.
That sounds intense.
It does.
Yeah.
But the sources explain the thinking. Sure, maybe it would have been faster in the short run for the Korean experts to just do it all.
But it wouldn't last.
Exactly. Building that deep local understanding and participation was seen as absolutely non-negotiable for the system's long-term maintenance and sustainability. You need local buy-in and capability.
It's such a powerful reminder, isn't it, that sustainable digital change is fundamentally about people, collaboration, not just dropping in technology.
It's a human-centric process, deep down.
Okay, so let's sort of wrap this up. Looking back at this deep dive, we've really seen Kyrgyzstan make a major shift from that cumbersome analog system
It's one causing all that frustration.
to a much more efficient digital one. And this was driven by that modernization and capacity development project running 2020 to 2025, using that Korean-style approach.
And the impact, as we saw, is pretty dramatic. Processing times slashed by over 90% for lots of key services. Online application times cut to a tenth in some cases.
These aren't just stats. That's real time saved for people. Hours, maybe days, back in their lives when dealing with essential admin, like address changes or passports.
Huge difference in daily life.
But we also saw it wasn't easy. This journey was incredibly complex. They faced everything from changing mindsets.
And there's crazy interagency problems like the building fight.
Right. And the massive task of data consolidation, plus ensuring local ownership for the long haul, took constant effort, communication, interpreters, real cross-cultural teamwork.
And looking forward, that potential to tackle the welfare blind spots with the new online portal, it shows how digitalization, when it's done thoughtfully, can really promote inclusion, not just efficiency.
And those success factors, the sources pointed to the unity, the deep local involvement, constant communication, building on that history, the sowing the seeds.
It all underlines that success here is as much about people, relationships, and trust as it is about the actual technology.
It's a really complex mix.
Indeed it is.
So for you listening, when you think about this experience in Kyrgyzstan, navigating the big technical hurdles and all those deep administrative, even cultural challenges to get this digital reform done,
Yeah.
what does that tell us about the true complexity of modernizing public services anywhere?
Yeah, it's rarely just about the tech itself.
And how crucial does building that deep trust and ensuring real local understanding, like that idea of sowing the seeds, seem now for making these ambitious projects actually stick in the long run? Something to think about.